everybody! Section Man the Pharaoh Wizard here! Woo! Daredevil Season 2 is here! Now, last year I had a little bit of a hard time staying awake and then doing a horror review, but I think I figured out the best way to do that all. So let's do this review! What the fuck is an Electra? Alright, Daredevil is back, and let's talk about it. So, of course, if you want to see my full review of Season 1 to know how I felt about everything, check out the review right here and see how I felt about Season 1. Really quickly, along with everyone else, I love the dark tone of it. I loved the violence, and Vincent D'Onofrio was just amazing as Kingpin. And it was a great season. I absolutely loved it. And I think I put it as my favorite Marvel thing of 2015. So, where does Season 2 fit? So, Season 2 is, I think, the first full MCU thing we've gotten in 2016. Agent Carter might be finished, but I'm not caught up on that, so I don't know. I'm going to count this as the first MCU property of the year. Where does it fit? Well, last season had a little bit of a pattern of it started high, kind of moved down, then got high again, and then moved down, then got high again, kind of thing. This season started off high and just slowly moved down and then slowly built its way back up again. And it's definitely for the worst, in my opinion. And I think the major problem is there wasn't a big bad in this season. So it ended up just being things that happened rather than like having an end goal of something we're trying to complete or finish. It just was stuff happening. Not too much of a spoiler, but obviously in the trailers they pointed the Punisher as the big bad guy. But that kind of gets resolved weird. I'm not going to talk about it because I don't want to spoil it. But there really wasn't a big bad guy, and it really hurt the season. So I don't want to get into too many spoilers, so I'm just going to talk about the characters that were in Daredevil and how they panned out. So of course we got some main returning characters. We got Charlie Cox, of course, as the titular Daredevil, and he still does a great job of being very intense as Daredevil. And the one little problem I did have is it seemed when he was Matt Murdock, the lawyer, when he was lawyering, he was like too perfect of a lawyer. He just could not do anything wrong as a lawyer, which seemed kind of odd. And I guess he was just a little too... It's just too perfect. But as Daredevil, he was great. He was dark and interesting. And he had to really balance his life. They did a lot of stuff that they do in a lot of second movies of a superhero, where now the first movie they spent building up to being this hero. Now you're this hero, and you have to figure out how you're that hero in your life, and how you balance, your job and your relationships and things like that. And this is him figuring out how Daredevil fits in his life. They hit a lot of the normal points that they do in a lot of movies that do that, but I think they got some new and interesting ideas that they put in as well, and it was really good, and I liked it. Charlie Cox, again, did a great job. Then we got Eldon Henson, or, just Fulton Reed, because he's Fulton Reed, as Foggy. And actually, Foggy was fantastic this season. They really gave him some really amazing moments where you just wanted to cheer, like, yeah, Foggy! Way to go, Foggy! And he really grew in this season, and I think he's a little bit of the breakout character this season. I love what they let him do. he's just a really good, solid character this season. He wasn't even bad last season, but he's just even better now. And he's just really good. I loved Foggy this season. Foggy all the way. Stick it to the man. Deborah Ann Wall, of course, returns as Karen Page. And she, again, she felt a little bit like she did in the first season, where she's off doing her own thing, trying to uncover a conspiracy, while everyone else is doing something else. But it fits a little bit better this season how they ended it. And it really felt good. She was always solid. Nothing like too extreme that broke her out of anything. But she came in and gave a solid performance and is very enjoyable. I loved it. And then, of course, Rosario Dawson returns as the night nurse. She's not in it as much as the first season, but she's in it more than she was in Jessica Jones. And she's just around, not taking anyone's shit, and being awesome. I loved her, first season. I loved her this season. She just did a great job. And that's pretty much it for returning cast. There might be some more people returning. I don't know. You gotta watch and find out. Maybe there's some more people coming in. So we got 2 new characters that came in that, of course, I'm gonna have to talk about. And that's Yaldi Jung, I believe is how you say it. I probably just butchered that. But she comes in and plays Elektra, and I loved her Elektra. Jennifer Gardner's Elektra was the absolute worst part of Daredevil, and her solo outing is maybe one of the worst comic book movies of all time, just because of how boring it is. Like, that's the worst sin a movie can commit, is just being boring. You can't even, laugh at how bad it is. It's just boring. Anyways, she comes in and is a great Elektra. She's kind of plays it as the bitch you love to hate, and she's great. I love what they did with her storyline, which I'm going to get to in spoilers, but I'm not going to talk about here if you don't want anything spoiled. But yeah, her storyline is amazing. I loved what she did. She was great. I have absolutely no complaints. She was amazing. I will mention, a lot of people talked about her costume, and it is basically just a tank top with a turtleneck that she pulls over her nose. But I will say, keep watching. Just like last season with Daredevil, and even the Punisher happened with this too, is they're just wearing clothes, and then the final episode they get a different costume, and her different costume is awesome. So just hold on, and she gets a better costume at the end. It's great. Alright, so then we got John Bernthal, Shane from The Walking Dead, playing Frank Castle, the motherfucking Punisher. Yeah! So I'm a huge Punisher fan. I love Frank Castle. He's just such a cool character. Just how on mission and precise he is. He's just uncompromising. He's fantastic, and I love the freaking Punisher. Part of why I probably like him a lot too is a lot of people in the Marvel Universe hate him because of how extreme he goes. So he ends up not getting pulled into all the big events that are happening. So he doesn't have to stop his series to go help this thing or do that thing. He just has his own series running, and it's always the better for it because he can just focus on his series. So where does Shane from The Walking Dead stack up against the previous Punishers? Because we've had quite a few Punishers in the past. We've had Dolph Lundgren, we've had Thomas Jane, and we had Ray Stevenson, who honestly have all been good Punishers. Dolph Lundgren's, his Punisher wasn't bad, his movie was bad. But to be honest, I've loved the other 2 Punishers. And I thought both guys did a great job doing a different version of that Punisher. And it's just been solid. So where does his Punisher fit in all this? Well, it's really hard to say, because you see a very different angle than we have seen for Punisher before, at least in movies or live action. In all the other movies, it's taken from Frank Castle's perspective, so he doesn't sound so crazy because you're along the ride with him. But from the outside, he's a little bit of a psychopath that's mass murdering people. And they really show that side of the Punisher in Daredevil. He's really just an insane guy killing a lot of people. They do give him moments where you can empathize with him, and he definitely doesn't kill people. He only kills people that need it. He is the Punisher. And I like that he didn't get that name from himself. That name is, kind of thrust upon him. I like that too. So it's kind of hard to compare him. But I will say, what I really like about Frank Castle in the comics is how on mission he is all the time. Like, he's always like 4 or 5 steps ahead of people. Like, if he gets arrested, he has a reason for that, and he's got an overall plan. This Punisher seems like at times he's just floating through things. Like, he's not the master tactician that he always that he is in the comics. And I keep waiting for this overall plan to break out, and he doesn't feel quite like he's there. And you could say it's because he's early in his career, but I just really missed that point of that Punisher. Like, he really didn't have an overall plan, and they really made him more feel like it's revenge rather than him just trying to stop crime. And that's, Frank did move to being the Punisher because his family was killed, but it wasn't just revenge on the people that killed his family. He wanted to stop this from happening to other families. This Frank in Daredevil seems a little bit more of a revenge story, and I didn't like that as much. The other part was they definitely had his pinpoint accuracy aiming when he was shooting stuff, and they got his brutality down a lot. But when he got hand-to-hand, he was a little bit too brutal. And what I mean is, Frank Castle in the comics, if he's going to get into a hand-to-hand fight and he knows he's going to kill this guy, he's going to get it done and quick. He's just very precise, Marine training. I'm not going to, go nuts. I'm just going to kill this guy because I know I need to kill him. Let's just get it done. Let's get it over with and move on. John Berthenol gets into hand-to-hand combat. There's times where he's just like, there's this one moment where he's like stabbing a dude 20 times in the chest. Frank Castle wouldn't do that. He just slit his throat and call it a day. Like, it sounds brutal and like weird that, just do that and call it a day. But that's Frank Castle. He's very precise. He's very on mission. Like, if I'm going to kill this guy, I'm going to do it quick and get it over with. This Punisher seemed a lot more like brawler style. Like, I'm just fighting my way through. And that was a little bit weaker as well. But some of the stuff the Punisher did seems like it will hopefully tie into the overall MCU, which brings me to my next topic, is how does this tie into the MCU? It seems like a lot of what's going on in Daredevil Season 2 should hopefully tie into Civil War. There's a definite split of what people think of these vigilantes. Like, some like them, some don't. Some think they're doing a good job. Some say they're psychopaths. And Frank is definitely like the linchpin of this whole thing. And I really would like to see that tie into Civil War. Maybe even if it's just like a throwaway line of like, hey, now we got this dude murdering people in New York. Like, just something to bring this overall into the MCU. Because I did feel like this movie isn't very in-depth within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It kind of just deals with itself, and there is no real direct placement of where this fits in the MCU timeline. Like, it's obviously after Jessica Jones, which was obviously after Daredevil Season 1, which is obviously after Avengers. But that's about it. Like, it doesn't mention Sokovia, so you're not sure if it's after Age of Ultron. There's no mentions of really anything else except Jessica Jones and Season 1. So it's just somewhere between Jessica Jones and Civil War. Like, I'd like a little bit more stronger placement. And, you know what? Let's get some freaking cameos in there so we know where this is. Like, I know they're trying to just do their own thing, but I would love it to mix a lot more into the MCU. And that's like a thing I've been saying a lot, is that with Marvel, a lot of us are watching and looking into everything they've done. The shows, tie-in comics, the Netflix stuff, every movie. And I think there needs to be a little bit more of a payoff for the people that took the time to see everything. Because it feels like I know the movies are for the general public to enjoy, but I really would like more payoff for the people that have taken the time to see everything Marvel has done. I'm one of the people that said, Coulson should have been in Age of Ultron somewhere, and people have told me, well, then that's giving people a lot of credit to have seen the show and know what's going on in the show. But I say, if Coulson's in there and you don't understand he's in there, then you need to go back and watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is like the commercial for people to go back and watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I just think there needs to be a little bit more payoff for people that take the time to watch everything Marvel. So after that rant, there is some real good links to Jessica Jones. Rosario Dawson talks about helping Luke Cage. The law office that was in Jessica Jones is mentioned multiple times, and there is a definite name drop, a straight name drop of Jessica Jones. So that is great. That at least ties into there. But like I said, I just want to see it tie in overall, and maybe it would be too clunky. I don't know. I'm not a writer, but I just want to see it overall. But what you do get to see, and it's something I love in the MCU and why it exists, is at one point you see the Punisher and Daredevil fighting together. Yes! You see Elektra and Daredevil fighting together. Yes! And even at one point you see all three all together and you're like, holy crap, this is happening! Finally! And that's why I love the MCU, and it definitely takes advantage of that point, and I love it. It's so fantastic. So I've rambled long enough, it's time to get into spoilers. So if you want to skip the spoilers, let's click Planet Terror right here, and that'll take you to my wrap-up, and that'll skip the spoilers. But spoiler time! The return of Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin was unexpected and amazing. It was only 2 episodes, 2.5, that he was in there, but he is so good again. Everything he does is so menacing and so maniacal. He's just loves doing this character, you can tell. And I love that they acknowledge that the Kingpin's still around, and you can see what the Kingpin's been doing, and it's great. I love that. It was amazing. And then, like I mentioned before, Elektra's storyline was fantastic. I loved it. They initially introduced her as this party girl, rich party girl who's bored of life and who's doing crazy stuff because she's bored. But then you start thinking, does a party girl learn martial arts because she's bored? But then, it turns out the twist of, she's been trained by Stick her whole life and was, meant to meet Matt Murdock on purpose to bring him back to Stick. And I love that turn, and I love, the twist at the end. I loved what they did with her storyline. Elektra was so fantastic. Everyone's pushing for a Punisher solo movie, or solo series, or solo movie. I want to see Elektra's solo series. I think that would be great. I love that Elektra. Now, speaking of the Punisher, like I said, obviously I had some problems with it. And the main problem was there was a hint of this whole conspiracy of why his family got killed, and this link to this big bad guy called the Blacksmith. And that did not have a good payoff at all. He was seen as this big dark guy who's pulling all these strings, doing all this crazy stuff, and it's just the general that sort of mentioned once. And he's not even, he's taken out really quickly and easily. It's not a big thing. I mean, he never really says that he is the Blacksmith overall, so maybe there's more to it that'll build up later, but it just doesn't seem like the Punisher's storyline is filled out very well. And it's a little weak and dropped off. But the other good thing that I loved was the final episode, and how at the end of this season, everything wasn't reset back to the beginning. They didn't go through all this and now we're back to where we started. There are some definite changes at the end. I mean, Nelson and Murdoch law firm is gone. Foggy's off at a different law firm. Karen's off working for the newspaper, and it sounds like Matt Murdock is just gonna be diving into Daredevil and just being Daredevil. And I would love to see how this is all gonna pan out. And I loved how the whole series ended. Obviously I said there's no big bad and how the Punisher was a little weak, but I do love how they ended the series. So let's wrap this whole thing up, shall we? Obviously I had some complaints and I had some likes. This is a very interesting series. I would say season 1 was better. I would say Jessica Jones was better. Obviously, if you see my reviews, I put Jessica Jones just below Daredevil, and I'd say this is below Jessica Jones, and not even really close. Like, this is a solid third place. It's not bad. Don't get me wrong. It's way better than Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's way better than Arrow, even. It's really good still, but it doesn't live up to what the first season did. And maybe it's like the shock of that, but again, what I think the problem was is there wasn't an overall bad guy driving the plot. It was just stuff that was happening. And it really felt disjointed, is the only way I can put it. It felt like a set of writers wanted to do an Elektra story, and a set of writers wanted to do a Punisher story, and they couldn't figure out a way to get them together. And I honestly think that they could have done one or the other, and either one would have been enough to hold a whole season. But then they ended up doing both, and it made a little bit of a mess, and a little bit confusing, and again, just disjointed is the best way to characterize this season. It's just disjointed. But, again, it's not bad. Obviously, it's the first full Marvel thing we've gotten this year, and it's a great start. I loved it. So on a scale of bad guys in the rogue gallery of Daredevil, on a scale from Deadpool to Stiltman, I would give this a Typhoid Mary. So that's my review. I'm Sexy Matt the Fair Wizard, and until next time, hold on to your hold slots.